If you're an artist or creative and you're considering selling on Etsy, I have opinions about it. So let's talk about it. Hi friends, welcome or welcome back. Today I'm going to talk all about Etsy. I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of selling with Etsy and my overall opinions, tips, and feedback on using the platform. So if you haven't heard of Etsy, Etsy is an online marketplace that connects people looking for unique goods with independent sellers around the world. When you shop on Etsy.com, you can choose from millions of handmade, vintage, and craft supply items created and curated by millions of independent sellers. Each item on Etsy is listed and sold by a seller who creates handmade items or curates vintage or craft supply goods. There's no Etsy warehouse. When you shop on Etsy, you're directly supporting independent sellers and artists who manage their own orders and inventory. A lot of you have been asking about it, and it's been something that I've been selling on Etsy for since 2016. I started. I've had many iterations of my shops. I've had two different shops. One has had three different names, and I've sold three different kinds of products on it. I started off selling handmade sewn yoga headbands, like the stretchy yoga headbands. That was my first Etsy shop, and it did really well. But I decided I didn't want to spend my time just making the headbands because you could only make so much money, and it was very time consuming. And I liked to do the handmade products, but I wanted to explore other opportunities. So after doing the headbands, then I decided to switch over and I started another Etsy shop which was selling vintage home decor, and I loved doing that. And that shop I had for about 3 or 4 years, and I just closed that last summer, in the summer of 2023, and sold off all my inventory. Although I did have a fun time doing that, I just found I wanted to direct my attention towards more art related projects and avenues. So I decided to shut the vintage stuff down, and who knows, maybe one day that's something I might pick up again. I have no idea. I do like still looking for fun thrifted and vintage pieces for my home, but it's something I just kind of do as a hobby more now. But it was a great shop, and I think Etsy's a great place to sell vintage on because it's really easy for people to find stuff they're looking for without having to go out and buy it. And you can charge a premium for that because you're the one that took the time to go out and find it and clean it up and list it and ship it to them. So I think it's definitely worth it to do vintage on Etsy. So the other shop that I had, which I hadn't been using since I was doing my vintage, I then decided to switch over and try my hand at doing some fun graphics on print on demand t-shirts, which was all the rage a couple years ago. And I was trying to do that because I just wanted to have fun doing more creative things with graphic design and just trying out and see what this print on demand industry was all about. So that was interesting, but there's way too much competition, and I didn't put a lot of effort into it. I was just kind of trying it out and testing the waters. So that didn't last long, but I did learn a lot from it. And then the last iteration was I changed the name again, and now it is my shop where I am selling just art that I have made. And I started off selling that as print on demand art, so it was more like abstract, like wall art, like decor wall art. So people would buy prints and it would get printed by the manufacturer of the print on demand partner, and then they would print it and ship it out to the customer. And well, it was the good thing about that is that once you make the art and then make the listing, it's passive income after that, except maybe some customer service. And checking to make sure that all of the items are being printed and shipped on time. But after that, it really is a passive income if you have enough audience. I did find that a lot of the type of art that I was doing, there was a high competition. I think there's a lot of people using AI to create these kind of more abstract, very commercial, fun, like home decor wall prints. And it was hard to compete with a lot of, there's a couple companies that are doing really well and kind of, I feel like taking over Etsy with that. And obviously on Etsy, the more you sell, the more you sell. So if they're doing well, they just keep getting all the views on their ads and keep getting all the sales. And it's hard for new people to kind of get shown up in there. But so now I have this art-based Etsy shop, and now that I'm going to start doing more of my own like custom illustration for wedding dresses, and I'm going to be doing more fashion, travel, and lifestyle related artwork that I will make on art prints, and I will be printing and shipping them myself instead of using print on demand. So this is my current way that I'm using Etsy to sell. So I want to talk about the pros and the cons of Etsy, and I'm not telling you whether you should or shouldn't use Etsy. That is something that only you can decide. What's best for your business, your type of art, your customers, how you like to do things. It's a tool that you can use in your business. It might not be right for everybody. Not everybody might like the way the platform works, and that's fine. I'm just giving you my opinion and what I see as pros and cons, which you can then use that information and decide if it's right for you compared to doing it a different way, like having your own website or any other way that you want to sell your art. So let's get started with the pros. And I do have a list here written down, so I will be looking at my list. So to get started, the first pro that I have for Etsy is that it does have a built-in audience. So if you are just new or small art or new or creative business just starting out, Etsy is good because it does have the built-in audience where they do a lot of marketing. They have a lot of eyeballs on their website, a lot of people that purchase and buy off there regularly from all over the world. And you can decide what countries that you want to sell your art in. You don't have to sell everywhere. You can just sell in your own country if you want. It doesn't have to be global. I find that Etsy is very easy to run, very easy to navigate and use. It's pretty user-friendly. So that is also a plus. Obviously, you will get better at it as you go along, but I think that they make it really easy for you to figure out what's the next step and how to use the platform and how to navigate through the system. So I do think it's really easy to use for tech challenged people. It's a good place to get started if you're, like I said, if you're just getting started in your art business or your creative business, or you're making products or whatever it is that you're doing. Is a good place to kind of test the waters and see if your products do well, if anybody is interested in them, how you can make them better, maybe if you need to add like which direction you might want to go with your products or your art. I think it's a really good place to start because you don't have to invest a lot of money to get started. You can just simply list your items. It's 25 cents US dollars for a listing fee, which was for 4 months, and then you can set it to automatic or manually renew every 4 months, and it will also renew every time you sell something. So then that you would also pay that listing fee every time you sell it because it would automatically renew that listing so that someone else can buy it. And I think now though they have started, if you start a new shop, I believe there's a $15 fee if you start now, which is non-refundable. And even if your shop gets closed down, you don't get that money back. So there is that. So I will give you that forewarning. And then once you have the listing, pay the listing fee to list it, then you only pay additional fees when you sell an item. So then they take percentages off for the transaction fee, the purchase fee. There's a couple fees on there. It all adds up. I want to say overall, when I look at my stats, it adds up to about 10 to 15% of the listing price. So that's a good way to kind of gauge for me. I just take 15% off. If I'm figuring out my profit in the end, I take that off of the listing price to figure out how much I'm actually going to end up with in my pocket from Etsy if an item sells. So keep that in mind. But the good thing is that you do only pay, except for that 25 cents, you only pay when they sell. So in that case, I feel like it's a very low barrier to entry. With starting your own website can end up costing a lot of money monthly, depending on where you go to do your website, plus all the time you have to spend setting it up, and then maintaining that. You have to figure out what works for you. But with Etsy, it's like you just open a shop and start listing, and you're good to go. You do get out what you put into Etsy. If you think you can just throw up 3 or 4 listings and never do anything, you're never going to make any sales on it. But if you're consistently putting up new listings on a weekly basis, and you're in your shop fixing up things, making your shop look good, changing your wording, updating your photos, your about me, all of the shop information. If you're doing that, then you should start to see an increase in your sales. And it does take a long time, but you will see improvement as you go. But if you don't put any time into your shop, you're not going to get a lot of sales. And I know that from experience, because the times when I don't go in my Etsy shop at all, I don't do any listings, I basically just ignore it, I don't get any sales. But then when I start listing consistently again, I do see that uptick in getting views and then getting sales on my items. So it is, you get out of it what you put into it. So that could be a pro or a con depending how you look at it. But there is no get rich quick scheme at all, especially with Etsy. Like, it's not just set it and forget it. There is still work that's involved. And if you're not in your shop constantly, then you're not going to see as much growth in it. But if you are someone who is putting in the work consistently, and you're getting your listings done and you're getting better every time, if you're figuring out like how to optimize your listings, like how to do your tags and your titles and your description, and you're doing great photos, and you're consistently improving your shop appearance and the quality of your listings and photos and your products, then you will see a gradual success on Etsy, and you will get found and you will get sales. And the more sales you get, the more sales you get. Because if you're making sales, Etsy's going to show your products to more people, because they're making money when you make money. So if you're making sales and being profitable, then Etsy wants to get in on that action as well, and they're going to promote your items. And then in turn, because you're getting seen more, you're then getting even more sales. So it's just a crazy cycle where the more you sell, the more you sell. So you need to get movement on your items and get it shown. So that's why I suggest that you really work on, like I said, the quality on the of your titles, tags, description, like anything you can to optimize your listings. You need to continually work on learning and educating yourself on the best way to make those better for you, the best that you can do for you and your shop. That's what I would recommend. Anyways, like, I'm constantly learning and trying to make everything better. And I do see that rewarded in the end with more sales when I do that. So, like I said, you get out when you put into it. So the next thing that I really like about Etsy is that they take care of all the sales tax for you. So you don't have to worry about, like, who do I collect sales tax from? Who do I charge it from? Like, what countries, what states, provinces? Like, you don't have to worry about that. They do it on your behalf, because I don't want to deal with, and then like remitting tax to to the government. Like, who do I owe it to? It's too much to think about. I don't want to think about it. So I love that Etsy takes care of all that. They charge what they have to charge to the right people at the right time, and then they remit it for you. So that's a no-brainer. And I don't know, but for me, like, that's a huge weight off my shoulders, that I don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. So if that's important to you, I think it's a really good pro for selling on Etsy. What I also like about Etsy is that they have a ton of information on their websites to help you. There's lots of resources. There's lots of help for every step of the way with using Etsy, of how to set things up, tips and tricks. There's interviews from people that use Etsy. There's all this kind of information you want to know, like how to get traffic to your website, how to set it up properly. Like they have so much Etsy help and support that there's lots of information to help you constantly improve your listings and your shop. So they really do make it easy if you take the time to read and research. There's a lot of information and help available for you. And they tell you what you need to do to be successful on Etsy. You can listen to all of the people you want, but all the information is there if you take the time to look it up and read it. They'll tell you exactly what will get you shown, what will get you suspended, what you can and can't sell, and what things you can and can't do on Etsy, and it's all there in black and white. Some things may be a little gray, but they really do give you all the information. So I find that's really valuable. Another pro that I find with Etsy is it's easy to set up the sales and the coupons. So they do have a whole marketing section in there where you can do paid ads as well, which I suggest doing. This is just my strategy, but I suggest doing paid ads when you first list something for maybe 2 weeks or 30 days, something like that. Just give it a boost, because if you can get some sales through paid ads, then that will maybe get your item shown more, and the more sales you have under your belt, the more it will show it organically, and you can get organic sales and traffic, and then turn off paying for ads. Because sometimes the amount you pay for the marketing ads kind of takes away all the profit of any sales that you get, and for me there's no point in advertising if you're not going to make any money in the end, bottom line. So you have to judge like what's worth it for you. But I would suggest maybe doing it for the first 30 days and then turning it off. Hopefully you're getting some organic sales at this time, but you have to do trial and error and see what works for you in your shop. But you can do sales and coupons, which is fun. So you can do promotions, you can give people codes. They can get, if they buy, like say 2 or more items, they get a discount. You can give them a code if when they buy something to come back, give them a code. And you can also set things up so when people buy multiples, they automatically get a discount, and you can decide if you just want to have it on one category in your shop or the whole entire shop. So you can really set the parameters of these sales and these coupons of how they work. And then you can also do an overall sale in your shop. So say for this weekend only, the entire shop is 30% off, or 2 days only, all mugs are 30% off, however you want to do it. So depending on what's going on and you want to do some type of sale or promotion or coupon, they have lots of really easy ways for you to offer those to your customers, and I think those are really fun to do as well. And you can track those also in your analytics. And that's another pro actually, is they have a really great set of tools and analytics for you to keep track and see what are your sales, your views, what's doing the best, what's doing the worst, your favorites, how much money you're making on things, your conversion rate. It will tell you where your traffic's coming from. So it gives you a lot of information that might help you improve the way that you're running your business and the products and art that you're selling. So I really like all those things about Etsy. So that being said, let's move on to some of the cons about selling on Etsy that you should take note of. So the biggest problem I think with Etsy right now is that the last couple of years has been really brutal, I think, for a lot of people with the whole print on demand industry and AI in general, and also drop shipping from China. Everybody finds that Etsy has just been clogged up with junk. A lot of people just trying to make a quick buck and selling things that they're not supposed to be selling. And it really, I think actual handmade sellers and artists really took a hit, because there were so many listings added in that were just junk, and it was clogging up Etsy, and nobody's items were getting seen or found anymore. And I think it was getting a little ridiculous, and it still is kind of ridiculous. But this year in particular, Etsy is really trying, I think, to reverse some of the damage that's been done. They've been cracking down on a lot of things, removing a lot of listings and shops that are not following their policies and their what they're allowed to sell, or how they set up their listings. And they've just been going through it, and it's not been 100% good because they were using bots to do a lot of this. So it's just automated and it's not real people doing it. And there has been authentically good listings being removed and taken down. But people can then go back to Etsy and say, listen, this is actually handmade by me. Please reinstate my listings. And then they can get their stuff back online, which is great. But sometimes it takes a while, and sometimes because their lack of customer service, which is another con I'll go over, it's really hard sometimes for people to know why their listings have been taken down if they are honest and true, like handmade sellers or artists. So there's been a lot of controversy around that and a lot of frustration for people. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that's keeping people off Etsy right now, is because there's so many people talking about, they opened a shop and got shut down 2 days later, or they put up listings and they're just getting taken down. Well, there's usually reasons for that. And if you don't set up your listing exactly the way it's supposed to be, like if you're using a print-on-demand provider and you don't talk about using a production partner, if you don't click that part on, if you're not doing, like, complying with the way that it's supposed to be set up, they will take your listing down. You could get suspended. If you are selling products that you should not be selling, other people's work or copyrighted materials or images or anything, you will get taken down like that. I don't advise that. You shouldn't be doing that. So if you're truly selling your own one-of-a-kind or handmade or your own art, then this is a good platform for you, and you just have to make sure that you're setting up your listings correctly. That's all. And you can use print-on-demand providers to make your items with your art on it, but you just have to make sure that you set it up correctly. But they do say you can use mock-ups from print-on-demand providers or mock-ups that you purchase from Etsy, but you do have to make sure that you alter that photo in some way so that it's different than all the other ones. So it's adding your art to it, adding your personal touch, editing it in some way. So that being said, they can remove or suspend your shop and your listings without notice. If you are, like I said, if you're just doing original art and products with your original art and handmade things that you're creating, then you shouldn't really have a problem with that overall. The other thing is that there's very high competition on Etsy right now. But if you are in a certain niche, like if you want to do t-shirts right now, I would say don't do it. It's way too saturated. There's way too many competitors doing the same thing. I truly think for handmade and art and creatives and artists, I still think it's a great platform to start on. But I'm in the cons. So hold on. So the high competition could be a problem, but if you have a very specific niche and you have something one of a kind and you're doing your own original art, I still think that there's room for everyone to be seen on there. If you're in a niche that is really highly competitive and it's the same thing over and over again, you might have a little bit of trouble getting seen. So you just have to make sure your stuff is just a little different or better quality or something like that. But it's still possible to be seen even though there is high competition, but it can be a problem. So another thing I don't like about selling on Etsy is that you don't own your customer information. You're not allowed to email your customers. They belong to Etsy. They're not your actual customers. So whereas if you had your own website and your own email list, those customers are yours to do what you want, to contact when you want, to market to when you want, but you can't contact your customers on Etsy because they don't belong to you. It's kind of a con. Another con I have is that you do have to bring your own traffic to Etsy. As much as they do have built-in traffic and they will show it, You will get more views if you can bring in customers from, say, a social media website like Instagram or TikTok or YouTube or Pinterest or any of those places. If you can bring in additional traffic to get your stuff seen, then you will get ranked higher faster, and then Etsy will also show you more, and then you can get more sales quicker the more traffic you bring in. So it's not all, well, they do have a lot of traffic on their website already buying. It really is helpful that you bring in your own traffic as well. Another con is that it can take a long time to get some traction and get your first sales and really get things rolling. It can be kind of a long process, but like I said in the pros, the more you put into it, the faster you will gain some traction. So it all depends how much time you have to work on it, how fast you will see success on that. And it also depends on, like I said, the quality of your products and your listings. So keep that in mind. So yeah, it can take a long time, and it can be a little frustrating when you don't see results right away, but you just have to keep at it, and eventually it will turn out. But it's not as fast. You won't see your results as fast as you did a couple years ago, or even like 5 or 10 years ago when there wasn't as many people selling on there because of the competition. It does take longer now, but it doesn't mean it's not impossible. So another con that I would say is their lack of customer service, because they have so much automation and so many bots running their website. It really is hard or near impossible, I think, to talk to a human when you have issues or problems and you need to get something sorted out, or you get a listing suspended or something happens to your shop. I personally have never had to contact Etsy because I've never had anything suspended. I've never had anything taken down or reports against me, or I've never had my shop suspended. Fingers crossed for my 2 shops the whole time that I've had them. So I can't relate to the trouble that people have getting through, but this is just based on the stories I've heard from other Etsy sellers trying to get through to customer service when they have an issue. So I know that's a problem. I hope I never have to call, but just something that I need to mention, of course, as a con, is that they are kind of known for their lack of customer service, and that's really something that Etsy needs to work on a lot better. Okay, so those are the cons that I had and the pros. So you can decide whether how those things work in your business. But I do have a few like overall tips and information that I wanted to share about selling on Etsy. I did touch on the fact that the reason that most people get suspended or unlisted is because they're just not doing their listings or setting up their listings or their shop properly, and that's getting them in trouble. So you just have to make sure that you are taking the time to do things properly and set it up properly, and you should be fine, and that you're using all your own original photos and information. I don't know that Etsy is the best solution for everybody, but I think it's good for some people. I think it's a good tool to have under your belt. I think it's a great way for newbies to get started, to get your feet wet, and like I said, start off your business if you're small and you don't have a big audience, and it's just a fun way to like start listing your items, seeing what's selling, seeing what resonates with people. And then when you get to a point where you're growing and you have a great audience and it makes sense, then I would also have Etsy and start your website, but maybe have both going for a while. And you can start converting your Etsy customers into your website customers with, you can put your cards or mailers or information in with your items when you ship them to give them the information of where else they can find you online. They can connect with you on social. You can direct them to your actual website, which then they could go to for next time, hopefully. And it's just a good way to kind of organically, slowly bring those customers over. And it could be a good place to just keep feeding customers to your website. You are 100% responsible for bringing all the traffic. So if you're not working hard with your marketing and your social media to get people to your website, they're not going to see you and they're not going to be able to buy your products. And then down the road, of course, if you grow really big, you don't need Etsy anymore, then you can delete it altogether because you don't need them anymore. Yeah, if you are selling art, your own original art or prints of your art or like items that you make or craft yourself, it's a great place to be found and to sell your art and your creativity and make a little money, whether it's just on the side or something you want to grow to full time. I do think that it has its place and that it is possible for you to be successful selling on Etsy. You just have to know how to play the game right. The other thing with selling on Etsy is that once you get the ball rolling there, you really can see improvement. It's like the more sales you get, the more sales you get, and it's like a snowball effect. So once you can get your foot in there and establish some of your items that start selling, you will see success with that. They will keep growing, keep growing. Like I said, if you put more effort into it, you will see more results from it. So it's all based on how much time and effort that you want to put into it. And like I said, it's not right for everyone, but I think it's a great tool to be using just to get started and play around and learn a bunch about yourself and your business and your art or your products that you're making. Well, I think that that's probably all I have to say. Like I said, it's not for everyone. There's pros and cons. You can decide which of these things is important to you and what's not so important to you, what you can live with and what you can't. What are your deal breakers in your art or creative business? And take it all with a grain of salt. These are just my opinions. I will be selling on Etsy for a while because it works for me with the stage that I'm at right now and the amounts of time and effort that I have to put into it. And I would like to have my own website down the road, and that's something that I might start within the year. I have to get serious and consistent about listing my art products. And when I do see more growth happening and more potential, then I will add a website in and I will do both. And then down the road, if I see the need to not sell on Etsy, if it's just too much time and not enough results with it, then I might shut it down. But for now, it works for me. I'm going to keep up with it, and you decide if that's something that works for you. And I hope this information was helpful. That's my 5 cents on whether you should sell on Etsy or not. I hope it was helpful, and thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.